Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell stepped onto the sun-baked concrete of Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado, California, her boots echoing against the ground as dozens of eyes turned toward her. The morning briefing was about to begin, and she could feel the weight of every stare from the seasoned SEAL operators gathered in the Tactical Operations Center. At 28 years old, Sarah had already distinguished herself as one of the Navy's most promising intelligence officers, but this assignment would test everything she had learned about leadership, resilience, and earning respect in the most elite military community in the world. The briefing room fell silent as she entered, her crisp uniform contrasting sharply with the casual tactical gear worn by most of the operators. Sarah had spent years preparing for this moment, knowing that her assignment as the intelligence liaison for SEAL Team 7 would either make or break her military career. She had graduated summa cum laude from the Naval Academy, completed advanced intelligence training at the top of her class, and served 2 deployments in Afghanistan, where she had proven her analytical skills under fire. But none of that mattered now as she faced a room full of men who had built their reputations on physical prowess, battlefield experience, and an unshakable brotherhood forged through shared hardship. Commander Jake Harrison, the team's commanding officer, gestured for her to take a seat at the front of the room. His weathered face showed no emotion as he introduced her to the team, but Sarah could sense the skepticism radiating from the assembled operators. These were men who had survived some of the most dangerous missions in modern warfare, who had earned their tridents through months of grueling training that broke most candidates before they even reached the halfway point. To them, she was an outsider, an unknown quantity who would need to prove herself worthy of their trust and respect. The first few weeks at the command were a careful dance of professional courtesy mixed with subtle testing. Sarah threw herself into her work, analyzing intelligence reports, briefing mission parameters, and coordinating with other agencies to ensure the teams had the most current and accurate information available. She arrived earlier than anyone else and stayed later than most, poring over satellite imagery, communications intercepts, and human intelligence reports that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. But despite her dedication and expertise, Sarah could feel the invisible barriers that separated her from the operators. During mission planning sessions, some team members would speak around her rather than to her, directing their questions and comments to the male officers present, even when the intelligence matters clearly fell under her purview. In the chow hall, conversations would pause when she approached, resuming only after she had moved on to another table. It was not overt hostility, but rather a form of professional isolation that made her feel like a guest in a house where she was not entirely welcome. The breaking point came during a particularly intense planning session for an upcoming mission in Syria. The team was tasked with capturing a high-value target who had been coordinating terrorist attacks against coalition forces. Sarah had spent days analyzing the target's movement patterns, identifying his safe houses, and mapping the network of contacts that surrounded him. Her intelligence package was thorough and precise, but during the briefing, one of the senior petty officers interrupted her presentation with a dismissive wave of his hand. "Look, ma'am," he said, his tone dripping with condescension, "we appreciate all the book learning and PowerPoint slides, but when bullets start flying, what really matters is whether you can hang with the boys when things get real. Maybe you should stick to what you know best and leave the tactical planning to those of us who have actually been downrange." The room fell silent, and Sarah felt her cheeks burn with a mixture of embarrassment and anger. Several operators shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others nodded in agreement with their teammates' assessment. Commander Harrison's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, waiting to see how she would respond to the challenge. Sarah took a deep breath and looked directly at the petty officer who had questioned her. Her voice was steady and controlled as she replied, but there was steel beneath the calm surface. "Petty Officer Rodriguez, I understand your concerns about my experience level. You're right that I haven't been through Bud/S training or earned my trident, but I have been shot at. I have planned operations that saved lives, and I have earned my place in this room through merit, not political correctness or gender quotas." She moved to the large display screen and pulled up a detailed tactical map of the target area. "Now, if you'd like to continue discussing the finer points of my qualifications, we can do that after we finish planning an operation that will put your teammates in harm's way." But right now, I suggest we focus on the intelligence that will help bring everyone home alive. The tension in the room was palpable, but Sarah continued her briefing without missing a beat. She walked through the target's known associates, his preferred escape routes, and the timing patterns that would give the team their best chance of success. Her analysis was meticulous and her presentation confident, but she could see that some minds remained unchanged about her place on the team. After the briefing ended, Commander Harrison approached her desk as the other operators filed out of the room. His expression was unreadable as he studied the intelligence materials she had prepared. "You handled that well," he said finally. Rodriguez was out of line, but his concerns aren't entirely unfounded. This community is built on proven performance under pressure, and unfortunately, you're going to have to work twice as hard to prove yourself as your male counterparts. Sarah nodded, having expected as much from the beginning. "I understand, sir. I'm not asking for special treatment or lowered standards. I just want the chance to do my job and contribute to the mission." Harrison's expression softened slightly. "The thing is, Mitchell, some of these guys have been doing this for 15 or 20 years. They've seen promising officers come and go, and they've learned to be skeptical of anyone who hasn't proven themselves in combat. It's not personal, even though it might feel that way." Over the following weeks, Sarah redoubled her efforts to demonstrate her value to the team. She volunteered for additional duties, took on complex analysis projects that others had deemed too time-consuming, and made herself available around the clock to support mission planning and execution. When the team deployed for their Syria operation, she coordinated intelligence support from the operations center, tracking the mission in real time and providing updated threat assessments as the situation developed on the ground. The mission was a complete success, with the target captured without casualties and a treasure trove of intelligence recovered from his safe house. When the team returned to base, several operators made a point of thanking Sarah for her support, acknowledging that her intelligence work had been crucial to the operation's success. It was a small step forward, but she could sense that she was beginning to earn their grudging respect. However, Sarah knew that one successful mission would not be enough to fully integrate her into the tight-knit community of Special Operations Forces. She would need to continue proving herself day after day, operation after operation, until her competence and dedication became unquestionable. What she didn't know was that an opportunity was approaching that would test not only her professional skills, but also her personal courage in ways she had never imagined. The intelligence community had been tracking a new threat emerging from the chaos of the Syrian civil war. A former Iraqi military officer named Hassan al-Rashid had been recruiting experienced fighters and foreign volunteers to form a new terrorist organization, with capabilities that far exceeded those of typical insurgent groups. Al-Rashid's background in chemical weapons development made him an extremely high-priority target, and the intelligence suggested that he was planning a major attack against Western interests in the region. Sarah had been assigned to lead the intelligence effort against al-Rashid's network, a responsibility that would require her to work closely with assets from multiple agencies and coordinate with allied intelligence services. It was exactly the kind of high-stakes assignment that could make or break a career, and she approached it with the same methodical dedication that had characterized all her previous work. As she delved deeper into the intelligence surrounding al-Rashid's organization, Sarah began to uncover connections and patterns that others had missed. The terrorist leader was not just recruiting random fighters. He was specifically targeting individuals with technical expertise in explosives, communications, and chemical weapons. More troubling still, her analysis suggested that al-Rashid had managed to acquire precursor chemicals that could be used to manufacture chemical weapons on a scale not seen since the height of the Iraq War. The implications were staggering, and Sarah knew that stopping al-Rashid would require a complex, multi-phase operation that would push SEAL Team 7 to their operational limits. As she prepared her intelligence briefing for the command leadership, she realized that this mission would likely determine not only her future with the special operations community, but also whether she had truly earned the respect of the warriors she served alongside. The emergency briefing was called for 0500 hours, and Sarah found herself standing before an audience that included not only SEAL Team 7, but also senior officers from Naval Special Warfare Command, CIA operatives, and representatives from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The intelligence she had uncovered about Hassan al-Rashid's chemical weapons capabilities had triggered alarms throughout the national security establishment, and now everyone wanted answers about the scope and immediacy of the threat. Sarah's hands remained steady as she activated the presentation system, despite knowing that her analysis would likely result in one of the most dangerous missions the team had ever undertaken. The satellite imagery she displayed showed a remote compound in the Syrian desert where al-Rashid had established his main operations center. The facility was heavily fortified, with multiple security perimeters, and what appeared to be a sophisticated laboratory complex at its heart. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the briefing room. "Based on our latest intelligence, Hassan al-Rashid has successfully acquired approximately 200 kilograms of methylphosphenyl difluoride, a key precursor chemical used in the manufacture of sarin nerve gas. Our sources indicate that he also possesses the technical expertise and equipment necessary to weaponize this material for delivery via artillery shells or improvised explosive devices." The room erupted in whispered conversations as the implications of her words sank in. Sarin gas was one of the most lethal chemical weapons ever developed, capable of killing thousands of people with just a few kilograms of properly dispersed agent. 200 kilograms represented enough raw material to manufacture weapons that could devastate an entire city. Admiral Rebecca Foster, the commanding officer of Naval Special Warfare Command, leaned forward in her chair. "What's our timeline, Lieutenant? How close is al-Rashid to having operational weapons?" Sarah clicked to the next slide, which showed a detailed timeline based on intercepted communications and surveillance data. "Based on our analysis of his procurement activities and the movement of personnel into the compound, we estimate that al-Rashid could have operational chemical weapons within 72 to 96 hours. Our signals intelligence suggests that he's planning to conduct a test of the weapons system within the next week, followed by deployment against coalition forces or civilian targets in the region." Commander Harrison studied the satellite imagery with the practiced eye of someone who had planned dozens of similar operations. "What about the facility's defenses? How many personnel are we looking at, and what kind of equipment do they have?" Sarah had anticipated this question and had spent considerable time analyzing the compound's security arrangements. The facility is defended by approximately 60 to 80 fighters, many of whom are experienced veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. They're armed with small arms, machine guns, and at least 3 vehicle-mounted anti-aircraft systems. The compound also features multiple layers of defensive positions, including bunkers, fighting positions, and what appears to be a sophisticated early warning system. She paused to let the information sink in before continuing. "However, there's a window of vulnerability we can exploit. Our human intelligence sources indicate that al-Rashid travels to a secondary facility approximately 30 kilometers away every Tuesday and Thursday to oversee weapons testing. During these visits, the main compound security is reduced to a skeleton crew of 15 to 20 personnel. The CIA representative, a thin man with prematurely gray hair, raised his hand. "What's the confidence level on that intelligence, Lieutenant? Lives are going to depend on the accuracy of your assessment." Sarah met his gaze directly. "Sir, the intelligence comes from 2 separate human sources who have proven reliable in the past, corroborated by signals intelligence and pattern analysis of vehicle movements around the compound. I assess the reliability as high, but I recommend we plan for the possibility that the security reduction is less significant than our sources indicate." Admiral Foster nodded approvingly. "Good answer. What about extraction? How do we get our people out once they've secured or destroyed the chemical weapons?" This was the most challenging aspect of the mission, and Sarah had spent considerable time developing options with the operations planning staff. The compound is located in an area controlled by Syrian government forces, which means we can't rely on traditional extraction methods. However, there's a dry riverbed approximately 2 kilometers south of the facility that could accommodate a helicopter landing. We've also identified an alternative extraction point at an abandoned airfield 15 kilometers to the west. As the briefing continued, Sarah could see the team leaders mentally calculating the risks and challenges involved in the operation. This would not be a typical direct action mission where they could rely on speed and surprise to overwhelm their opponents. Instead, it would require careful coordination, precise timing, and the ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances on the ground. Petty Officer Rodriguez, the same operator who had questioned her expertise weeks earlier, raised his hand. Ma'am, what happens if we get to the compound and the chemical weapons aren't there? Or if al-Rashid has moved them to a different location? It was a fair question, and one that highlighted the inherent uncertainty of any intelligence-driven operation. Sarah had considered this possibility extensively and had developed contingency plans for various scenarios. Petty Officer, we've identified 3 possible storage locations within the compound based on the facility's layout and our understanding of chemical weapons handling procedures. If the primary target isn't in the expected location, the team will have detailed floor plans and search protocols to locate the materials quickly. She clicked to a new slide showing the compound's internal layout. Additionally, we've established procedures for rapid field testing of any chemical materials we encounter. The team will carry detection equipment that can confirm the presence of chemical weapons within minutes, allowing them to prioritize their search efforts effectively. The questions continued for another hour, as the assembled leaders probed every aspect of the intelligence and operational planning. Sarah found herself fielding inquiries about everything from local weather patterns to the psychological profiles of al-Rashid's key lieutenants. Each question represented a life-or-death decision that would need to be made in the field, and she understood the weight of responsibility that rested on the accuracy of her analysis. Finally, Admiral Foster called for a brief recess to allow the operational commanders to discuss the mission parameters. As the senior officers huddled in small groups around the briefing room, Sarah remained at her station, reviewing her notes and preparing for any additional questions that might arise. Commander Harrison approached her desk during the break, his expression serious but not unfriendly. "That was solid work, Mitchell. You've given us a clear picture of what we're dealing with and realistic options for accomplishing the mission. Thank you, sir. I know the intelligence isn't perfect, but I've tried to be as comprehensive and accurate as possible given the time constraints. The thing is, this mission is going to be different from anything we've done before. The chemical weapons aspect adds a layer of complexity that requires specialized knowledge and procedures. I need to know that you're prepared to support the team throughout the entire operation, including during the most dangerous phases." Sarah understood what he was really asking. Combat operations had a way of evolving rapidly, and intelligence officers needed to be able to adapt their analysis and recommendations in real time as new information became available. "Sir, I'm committed to providing whatever support the team needs, regardless of the circumstances. If that means working around the clock for the next week, I'm prepared to do that." "Good, because you're going to be our primary intelligence coordinator for this operation. That means you'll be responsible for monitoring the mission from the operations center, providing real-time updates on enemy movements, and making split-second decisions about changes to the operational plan." The weight of his words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She had supported missions before, but never one with such high stakes and so many variables. The success or failure of the operation would depend largely on her ability to process information quickly and provide accurate guidance to the team members who would be risking their lives on the ground. When the briefing resumed, Admiral Foster announced the mission approval and timeline. "Operation Desert Shield will commence in 60 hours, she said, her voice carrying the authority of her rank and experience. SEAL Team 7 will conduct a direct action mission to locate and secure or destroy Hassan al-Rashid's chemical weapons stockpile. Lieutenant Mitchell will serve as the primary intelligence coordinator, with overall mission command retained at this headquarters." As the meeting broke up and the various participants began their preparations, Sarah realized that she was about to face the ultimate test of her abilities and her place within the special operations community. The next few days would determine not only whether she could perform under the most intense pressure imaginable, but also whether the respect she had been working so hard to earn was truly deserved. Over the following 48 hours, the command center became a hub of frantic activity as the operation took shape. Sarah found herself at the center of it all, coordinating with intelligence agencies, updating threat assessments, and refining the operational plan based on the latest information from the field. She barely slept, surviving on coffee and adrenaline as she worked to ensure that every detail had been considered and every contingency planned for. The night before the mission, as Sarah conducted her final intelligence briefing for the assault team, she could see the change in how the operators looked at her. The skepticism and casual dismissiveness had been replaced by focused attention and professional respect. These men understood that their lives would depend on the accuracy of her intelligence and the quality of her real-time support during the mission. Petty Officer Rodriguez approached her after the briefing, his expression serious. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology for what I said a few weeks ago. You've proven yourself, and I want you to know that the team has complete confidence in your abilities." Sarah nodded, appreciating the gesture but knowing that the real test was still to come. "Thank you, Petty Officer. Let's just focus on bringing everyone home safely." As the team made their final preparations for deployment, Sarah took her position in the operations center that would serve as her command post for the duration of the mission. Multiple screens displayed real-time intelligence feeds, communications channels, and tracking data that would allow her to monitor every aspect of the operation as it unfolded. The mission was scheduled to begin at 020 hours local time, when the team would insert via helicopter at a landing zone 15 kilometers from the target compound. From there, they would move overland to the facility, conduct their assault, and secure or destroy the chemical weapons before extracting to a predetermined pickup point. But as Sarah settled in for what would likely be the longest and most stressful night of her career, she had no way of knowing that the intelligence picture was about to change dramatically, forcing her to make decisions that would test not only her professional competence, but also her personal courage in ways she had never imagined. The operations center hummed with quiet intensity as Sarah monitored the initial phases of Operation Desert Shield. Multiple screens displayed the progress of SEAL Team 7 as they moved across the Syrian desert toward their target, their positions marked by small blue icons creeping steadily across the digital map. The insertion had gone smoothly, with the team successfully landing at the predetermined coordinates and beginning their overland movement without encountering enemy forces. Sarah's headset crackled with periodic radio checks from the team leader, confirming their position and status as they navigated through the rocky terrain toward Al-Rashid's compound. Everything was proceeding according to plan, but she knew from experience that operations had a way of developing complications at the most unexpected moments. Her job was to stay ahead of those complications, identifying potential threats, and providing the team with the information they needed to adapt their tactics as circumstances changed. At 0347 hours, the first indication of trouble appeared on her intelligence feeds. A signals intercept from the National Security Agency indicated unusual radio traffic emanating from the target area, suggesting that the compound's security forces might be on higher alert than expected. Sarah immediately pulled up the communications analysis and began working to decode the intercepted transmissions. What she found sent a chill down her spine. The radio traffic was not coming from the main compound, but from a previously unknown facility located approximately 3 kilometers to the northeast. The communications protocols and encryption methods suggested that this was a command and control node that had somehow escaped detection during the pre-mission intelligence preparation. Sarah quickly cross-referenced the new facility's location with satellite imagery and signals intelligence databases, trying to determine its significance and potential impact on the mission. What she discovered was even more troubling than she had initially feared. The facility appeared to be a backup command center where Al-Rashid's lieutenants could coordinate the organization's activities if the main compound was compromised. More critically, the intercepted communications indicated that the terrorist leader himself might not be at the testing facility as intelligence had suggested. Instead, he appeared to be at this secondary location, potentially coordinating the final preparations for deploying his chemical weapons against coalition targets. Sarah faced a critical decision. The team was already committed to their approach to the main compound, and changing their target at this point would require a complete revision of the operational plan. However, if Al-Rashid was not where they expected him to be, the mission might fail to achieve its primary objective of preventing the deployment of chemical weapons. She immediately contacted Commander Harrison through the secure communication link. "Overlord, this is Intel. We have new information that may affect the mission parameters." Harrison's voice came through clearly despite the background noise of the operations center. "Go ahead, Intel. What have you got?" Sarah quickly summarized the intelligence about the secondary facility and the implications for the mission. "Sir, based on the communications traffic, it appears that Al-Rashid may not be at the testing facility as we anticipated. There's a possibility that he's coordinating the chemical weapons deployment from this alternate location." There was a long pause as Harrison considered the information. The team was now less than 2 kilometers from their original target, and any significant change to the plan would require careful coordination to ensure they didn't lose the element of surprise. Intel, what's your assessment of the threat at this new facility? Are we looking at a similar defensive posture to the main compound? Sarah had been analyzing the available intelligence about the secondary location and had developed a preliminary assessment. Sir, the facility appears to be much smaller than the main compound, with perhaps 15 to 20 personnel. However, it's likely that Al-Rashid has his most experienced security personnel with him, so we should expect a higher level of resistance despite the smaller numbers. The tactical situation was becoming increasingly complex. The original plan had called for the team to assault the main compound, secure the chemical weapons, and extract before enemy reinforcements could arrive. Now they were potentially looking at a two-pronged operation that would require splitting their forces and coordinating simultaneous actions at multiple locations. Harrison made his decision quickly, demonstrating the kind of battlefield leadership that had earned him his command position. Intel, I'm dividing the team. Alpha Squad will continue to the main compound to secure the chemical weapons, while Bravo Squad redirects to the secondary facility to capture or eliminate Al-Rashid. I need you to provide real-time intelligence support to both elements. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders like a physical burden. She was now responsible for coordinating intelligence support for two separate operations occurring simultaneously in hostile territory. The margin for error was essentially zero, and any mistake in her analysis or communication could result in casualties or mission failure. She immediately began coordinating with the various intelligence agencies to redirect surveillance assets toward the secondary facility. Satellite imagery was updated and transmitted to the team leaders, while signals intelligence specialists worked to break the encryption on the communications coming from both locations. At 0423 hours, Alpha Squad reached their observation position overlooking the main compound. The team leader's voice came through Sarah's headset with professional calm despite the danger of his situation. Intel, this is Alpha. We have eyes on target. Confirm minimal security presence as briefed. Estimate 12 to 15 personnel visible. Sarah checked her intelligence feeds and confirmed that Al-Rashid's absence from the main facility had indeed resulted in reduced security, as their human sources had indicated. Alpha, confirm reduced security posture. Be advised that Signals intelligence indicates possible chemical weapon storage in Building 3, northwest corner of the compound. Meanwhile, Bravo Squad was making rapid progress toward the secondary facility, but the intelligence picture there was much less clear. The facility had not been under surveillance for an extended period, and Sarah was working with limited information about its layout, defenses, and personnel. At 0441 hours, the situation became even more complicated when a new signals intercept revealed that Al-Rashid was planning to conduct an emergency deployment of his chemical weapons in response to intelligence reports of coalition forces operating in the area. The terrorist leader had apparently learned of the impending threat to his operations and was accelerating his timeline to avoid losing his chemical arsenal. Sarah immediately relayed this information to both team elements. All stations, this is Intel. Be advised that target is accelerating deployment timeline due to security concerns. Estimate chemical weapons could be moved within the next 2 to 4 hours. The urgency of the situation was now critical. If the teams could not locate and secure the chemical weapons quickly, Al-Rashid might succeed in moving them to another location where they could be deployed against civilian or military targets. The stakes could not have been higher. Alpha Squad began their assault on the main compound at 0456 hours, using coordinated breaching charges to create multiple entry points and overwhelm the defenders before they could mount an effective resistance. Sarah monitored their progress through helmet-mounted cameras and radio communications, providing real-time updates on enemy movements and guiding them toward the most likely storage locations for the chemical weapons. The assault proceeded smoothly, with the skeleton security force quickly neutralized by the experienced SEAL operators. However, when Alpha Squad reached the suspected storage areas, they made a disturbing discovery. The chemical weapons were not where intelligence had indicated they would be, and there was evidence that significant quantities of materials had been recently moved. Intel, this is Alpha Leader, came the tense voice through Sarah's headset. Storage areas are empty. Looks like someone cleaned house in the last 24 to 48 hours. We're finding empty containers and residual chemical traces, but no operational weapons. Sarah's mind raced as she processed this information. If the chemical weapons were not at the main compound, there were only two possibilities. Either they had been moved to the secondary facility where Al-Rashid was located, or they had already been transported to another location for deployment. Either way, Bravo Squad's mission had just become infinitely more critical. She immediately contacted the Bravo Squad leader. Bravo! This is Intel. Alpha reports negative on chemical weapons at primary target. All weapons may be consolidated at your location. Exercise extreme caution and be prepared for enhanced defensive measures. Bravo Squad was now approaching their target, and the team leader's response was characteristically calm despite the increased stakes. Intel, understood. We're moving into position now. Request all available intelligence on facility layout and potential storage areas. Sarah worked frantically to compile every piece of available information about the secondary facility. Satellite imagery was limited due to the location's recent discovery, but she was able to provide basic structural details and highlight areas where chemical weapons might be stored based on the facility's apparent purpose and layout. At 051, 2 hours, Bravo Squad began their approach to the secondary facility, and Sarah found herself coordinating between two active combat operations while simultaneously working to update the intelligence picture for both teams. The operations center around her buzzed with activity, as other staff members supported various aspects of the mission, but she remained focused on her primary responsibility of keeping both teams informed and ahead of enemy actions. The next few minutes would determine the success or failure of the entire operation, and Sarah knew that her decisions in the operations center would be just as crucial as the actions of the operators on the ground. The respect she had worked so hard to earn was about to face its ultimate test, not in a training exercise or planning session, but in the crucible of live combat, where lives hung in the balance. As Bravo Squad moved into position for their assault, Sarah received another critical intelligence update that would change everything. A new signals intercept indicated that Al-Rashid was not just accelerating his chemical weapons deployment, but was planning to use them immediately against a coalition base, located less than 50 kilometers from his position. The window for preventing a catastrophic attack was rapidly closing, and the pressure on both teams to succeed had just reached unprecedented levels. Sarah keyed her microphone, knowing that her next words would set in motion a sequence of events that would test everyone involved to their absolute limits. All stations. This is Intel. Priority flash traffic indicates imminent chemical weapons deployment against coalition forces. Mission is now time-critical. Repeat, mission is now time-critical. The response from both team leaders was immediate and professional, but Sarah could hear the tension in their voices as they acknowledged the updated threat level. In the next few minutes, she would need to coordinate the most complex and dangerous phase of the operation, while maintaining the calm, professional demeanor that the teams depended on for their success and survival. The seconds stretched like hours as Sarah coordinated the final phase of the most critical operation of her career. Bravo Squad was positioned outside the secondary facility where Al-Rashid and potentially all of the chemical weapons were located, while Alpha Squad was conducting a detailed search of the main compound for any remaining materials or intelligence that could prevent future attacks. The weight of command decisions pressed down on her as she realized that the next few minutes would determine whether thousands of coalition personnel would face a chemical weapons attack. Through her headset, she could hear the controlled breathing and whispered communications of Bravo Squad as they prepared for their assault. The facility was smaller than the main compound but appeared to be more heavily defended, with professional security measures that indicated Al-Rashid understood the importance of protecting his command center and remaining chemical weapons stockpile. Intel, this is Bravo Leader, came the quiet voice of Chief Petty Officer Marcus Thompson, the squad's senior enlisted leader. We have eyes on target facility. Count approximately 18 personnel, plus unknown numbers inside the main building. Defensive positions are well constructed and professionally manned. This is going to be a tough nut to crack. Sarah studied the real-time imagery being transmitted from Thompson's helmet-mounted camera. The facility consisted of 3 buildings arranged in a triangular pattern, with the largest structure in the center likely serving as both a command center and storage facility. The defenders had created overlapping fields of fire that would make any direct assault extremely dangerous, even for operators as skilled as the SEALs. Bravo Leader, this is Intel. Sarah responded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. Latest signals intelligence indicates the primary target is in the central building, likely in an underground facility. Be advised that chemical weapons storage may be co-located with command functions. The tactical situation was becoming increasingly complex. If the chemical weapons were indeed stored in the same building where al-Rashid was conducting his operations, any assault would risk triggering the very disaster they were trying to prevent. The possibility of accidentally rupturing chemical weapons containers during the firefight added another layer of danger to an already perilous mission. Chief Thompson acknowledged the information and began coordinating his assault plan with the other members of Bravo Squad. Sarah could hear fragments of their tactical discussion as they identified entry points, established fields of fire, and coordinated the timing of their attack. These were professionals at the peak of their abilities, but even they were operating at the edge of what was possible, given the constraints of the situation. At 0534 hours, the situation took another dangerous turn when Sarah detected movement on her surveillance feeds. A convoy of vehicles was approaching the secondary facility from the north, carrying what appeared to be approximately 30 additional personnel. If those reinforcements reached the facility before Bravo Squad completed their mission, the operators would find themselves outnumbered by more than 3-1 in hostile territory, with no immediate prospect of support. Bravo Leader. This is Intel. You have a convoy approaching from the north. Estimated 30 personnel. Arrival time approximately 8 to 10 minutes. Recommend immediate execution. Thompson's response was immediate and decisive. Intel. Understood. Bravo Squad moving to assault positions now. Beginning attack in 2 minutes. Others. Sarah felt her heart rate spike as she realized that the next few minutes would determine the outcome of everything they had worked toward. She had provided the teams with the best intelligence possible, but now their success would depend on the skill, courage, and determination of the operators who were about to risk their lives in one of the most dangerous missions imaginable. The assault began at exactly 0536 hours with a coordinated series of explosions as Bravo Squad used breaching charges to create multiple entry points into the central building. Sarah watched through multiple camera feeds as the operators flowed through the gaps with the fluid precision that came from countless hours of training and real-world experience. The defenders responded immediately, and the sound of automatic weapons fire filled Sarah's headset as the facility erupted into a fierce firefight. She tracked the movement of each team member through their GPS beacons and helmet cameras, providing real-time updates on enemy positions and directing the operators toward their objectives based on the intelligence she was receiving from multiple sources. Bravo 2, this is Intel. You have movement in the room to your right, likely armed personnel taking cover behind equipment. Recommend fragmentation grenade before entry. The operator acknowledged her guidance and followed her recommendation, neutralizing the threat before continuing his advance toward the target area. Sarah felt a surge of professional satisfaction at being able to contribute directly to the team's success, but she knew that the most dangerous part of the mission was still ahead. As Bravo Squad fought their way deeper into the facility, Sarah received an urgent communication from Alpha Squad at the main compound. They had discovered a cache of documents and computer equipment that provided crucial intelligence about al-Rashid's entire network and his plans for deploying chemical weapons against multiple targets. Intel, this is Alpha Leader. We've hit the intelligence jackpot here. Documents indicate plans for coordinated attacks against 3 coalition bases using chemical weapons. Also have detailed network information that could roll up the entire organization. Request permission to extend mission time to fully exploit this intelligence. Sarah faced another critical decision. Alpha Squad's discovery could potentially prevent multiple future attacks and dismantle al-Rashid's entire organization, but extending their time at the main compound would delay their extraction and potentially compromise their ability to support Bravo Squad if reinforcements arrived. The convoy she had detected was still approaching, and the window for a clean extraction was rapidly closing. She made her decision based on the overall mission priorities and the immediate tactical situation. Alpha Leader, this is Intel. Priority is supporting Bravo Squad and preventing imminent chemical weapons deployment. Secure high-value documents and prepare for immediate extraction upon completion of Bravo's mission. Meanwhile, the firefight at the secondary facility was intensifying as Bravo Squad encountered heavier resistance than expected. Al-Rashid's security personnel were fighting with the desperation of men who knew that capture meant death or life imprisonment, and they were using their knowledge of the facility's layout to maximum advantage. Chief Thompson's voice came through Sarah's headset, tense but controlled. "Intel, we're encountering significant resistance. Have located what appears to be the entrance to an underground facility, but it's heavily defended. Need information on layout and potential alternate entrances." Sarah worked frantically to analyze the available intelligence about the facility's underground components. The original construction documents were not available, but she was able to make educated guesses about the likely layout based on similar facilities and the topographical features of the area. "Bravo Leader, this is based on terrain analysis, probable alternate entrance on the east side of the building, likely concealed or camouflaged. Underground facility likely follows the natural contour of the terrain toward the northeast." Thompson acknowledged the information and redirected part of his team to search for the alternate entrance, while maintaining pressure on the primary access point. The coordination required to manage multiple entry points while under fire demonstrated the exceptional training and experience of the SEAL operators, but Sarah could hear the strain in their voices as the firefight continued. At 0548 hours, the approaching convoy reached the outer perimeter of the facility, and Sarah could see through aerial surveillance that the reinforcements were preparing to deploy in support of the defenders. The tactical balance was shifting rapidly against Bravo Squad, and she knew that they had only minutes to complete their mission before being overwhelmed. "Bravo Leader, this is Intel. Convoy has arrived and is deploying personnel to support facility defense. Estimate you have 5 to 7 minutes before they can effectively engage your positions." Thompson's response came between bursts of gunfire. "Intel, understood. We've found the alternate entrance and are moving on the underground facility now. Estimate 2 to 3 minutes to reach primary target." Sarah coordinated with the supporting aircraft to provide close air support against the newly arrived reinforcements, buying precious time for Bravo Squad to complete their mission. The complexity of managing multiple moving pieces while maintaining real-time intelligence support tested every skill she had developed throughout her career. Suddenly, Thompson's voice cut through the tactical chatter with urgency. "Intel, we've got him. Al-Rashid is in custody, and we've located the chemical weapons. Looks like about 50 kilograms of weaponized agent in artillery shells. Beginning destruction now." The relief Sarah felt was immediately tempered by the realization that the mission was far from over. Bravo Squad still needed to extract from the facility, while under fire from both the original defenders and the newly arrived reinforcements. The destruction of the chemical weapons would take several minutes, during which time the operators would be extremely vulnerable. "Bravo Leader, this is Intel. Extraction helicopter is inbound. ETA 6 minutes to alternate landing zone. Air support is engaging reinforcements but cannot provide close support near your position due to chemical weapons risk." As the team worked to destroy the chemical weapons and prepare Al-Rashid for transport, Sarah coordinated the complex extraction plan that would get everyone out alive. She was operating on pure adrenaline and professional instinct, making split-second decisions that balanced multiple competing priorities while maintaining the calm, authoritative voice that the operators depended on. The next few minutes would determine whether the mission ended in triumph or tragedy, and Sarah knew that her performance during this critical phase would define not only her career, but also her place within the special operations community. The respect she had worked so hard to earn was being tested under the most extreme circumstances imaginable, and the outcome would depend on her ability to maintain her composure and decision-making capability when the stakes could not be higher. The sound of explosions echoed through her headset as the team destroyed the last of the chemical weapons, and Thompson's voice confirmed that they were ready to begin their fighting withdrawal from the facility. "Intel, this is Bravo Leader. Chemical weapons destroyed, primary target secured. Beginning extraction now. Request immediate support from all available assets." The extraction phase tested every ounce of Sarah's training and composure as she orchestrated one of the most complex combat withdrawals in recent military history. Bravo Squad was fighting their way out of the facility while carrying a high-value prisoner and under fire from multiple directions, while Alpha Squad was simultaneously moving to their own extraction point with critical intelligence materials. Sarah coordinated between both teams, supporting aircraft and extraction helicopters while processing real-time intelligence that could affect the success of the entire operation. "All stations, this is Intel." Sarah's voice cut through the chaos with practiced authority. "Phoenix Flight is inbound to Extraction Point Alpha for Bravo Squad. ETA 4 minutes. Hammer Flight will extract Alpha Squad at Extraction Point Bravo in 7 minutes. All supporting assets are cleared to engage targets of opportunity to support extraction." Chief Thompson's voice came through her headset between bursts of automatic weapons fire. "Intel, Bravo leader, taking heavy fire from multiple positions. Al-Rashid is secure, but we have one operator with minor shrapnel wounds. Moving to extraction point now, but could use some help clearing our path." Sarah immediately coordinated with the air support assets to provide covering fire for Bravo Squad's withdrawal. The delicate balance between providing effective support and avoiding civilian casualties required split-second timing and precise coordination between multiple aircraft and ground forces. "Bravo leader, this is Intel. Falcon 2-1 is inbound from the west with 30mm cannon. Mark your position with infrared strobe and stay low. Danger close fire mission in 30 seconds. The next few minutes were a blur of coordinated violence as the extraction plan unfolded with military precision. Sarah tracked every element of the operation through her multiple screens and communication channels, making constant adjustments to timing and positioning as the tactical situation evolved. Her voice remained calm and authoritative throughout the chaos, providing the steady leadership that allowed both teams to focus on their immediate survival while knowing that someone was managing the bigger picture. At 0603 hours, Phoenix Flight reached Extraction Point Alpha and began taking fire from enemy forces who had positioned themselves along the planned extraction route. The helicopter pilots demonstrated exceptional skill as they maneuvered their aircraft through intense ground fire while maintaining position for Bravo Squad's extraction. "Phoenix lead, this is Intel. You have RPG teams positioned in buildings 4 and 7, approximately 300 meters northeast of your position. Recommend immediate withdrawal and approach from alternate vector." The pilot acknowledged her warning and adjusted his approach, successfully avoiding the anti-aircraft fire that would have likely resulted in the loss of his aircraft and crew. Sarah's real-time intelligence analysis had potentially saved multiple lives and kept the extraction on schedule despite the deteriorating tactical situation. Bravo Squad reached the extraction point at 0606 hours and began loading onto the helicopter while continuing to fight off pursuing enemy forces. Chief Thompson was the last man aboard, maintaining defensive fire until the aircraft began its departure. As Phoenix Flight lifted off with Bravo Squad and their high-value prisoner, Sarah coordinated with supporting aircraft to provide protective escort for the withdrawing helicopters. Alpha Squad's extraction proceeded more smoothly, as they had not encountered the same level of reinforcement at their target. The intelligence materials they had recovered would prove invaluable in dismantling the remainder of Al-Rashid's network and preventing future chemical weapons attacks. As both helicopters cleared Syrian airspace and headed toward friendly territory, Sarah finally allowed herself to acknowledge the magnitude of what had just been accomplished. The mission had been a complete success, with all objectives achieved and all personnel returning safely despite facing significantly greater resistance than anticipated. Admiral Foster entered the operations center as Sarah was conducting the post-mission briefing for the command staff. The Admiral had been monitoring the operation from her office, but wanted to personally congratulate the team responsible for its success. "Outstanding work, everyone," Admiral Foster announced to the assembled staff. This operation prevented what could have been one of the most devastating chemical weapons attacks in modern history. The intelligence preparation and real-time coordination were exemplary. She approached Sarah's workstation, where intelligence reports and tactical displays still showed the aftermath of the successful mission. "Lieutenant Mitchell, your performance tonight was exceptional. The decisions you made under pressure and the intelligence support you provided were crucial to the mission's success." Sarah stood and saluted, feeling a sense of professional accomplishment that transcended anything she had experienced previously in her career. "I was just doing my job." Admiral Foster smiled. "You were doing much more than that. You were demonstrating the kind of leadership and professional competence that this community depends on. Your analysis identified the threat, your coordination kept 2 assault teams alive and mission-focused, and your decision-making under pressure prevented a potential catastrophe. Over the following weeks, As the full implications of the mission became clear, Sarah found that her relationship with SEAL Team 7 had undergone a fundamental transformation. The operators who had once questioned her qualifications now sought her input on mission planning and intelligence analysis. Petty Officer Rodriguez, who had been among her harshest critics, became one of her strongest supporters within the team. The respect she had earned was not based on political correctness or lowered standards, but on demonstrated competence under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. She had proven that she could perform at the highest levels when lives depended on her decisions, and that accomplishment carried more weight than any academic achievement or training exercise ever could. 3 months after Operation Desert Shield, Sarah received notification that she had been selected for promotion to lieutenant commander, an advancement that would typically take several more years to achieve. The promotion was accompanied by orders assigning her as the intelligence officer for Naval Special Warfare Group 2, one of the most prestigious assignments available to an officer with her background and experience. The promotion ceremony took place on a crisp autumn morning at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, with SEAL Team 7 serving as the honor guard for the event. As Admiral Foster prepared to administer the oath of office, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The challenges she had faced, the respect she had earned, and the professional relationships she had built had all contributed to her development as an officer and a leader. Admiral Foster called the assembled personnel to attention and began the promotion ceremony. Today we recognize Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell's exceptional service and promote her to the rank of Lieutenant Commander. Her performance during recent combat operations exemplified the highest standards of military professionalism and demonstrated the kind of leadership that our nation's special operations forces depend on. As the ceremony concluded and Sarah received congratulations from her colleagues, Chief Thompson approached with a small group of operators from Bravo Squad. His expression was serious but friendly as he extended his hand. "Congratulations on the promotion, ma'am. You earned it the hard way, and everyone here knows it. We're proud to have served with you." Sarah shook his hand, feeling the genuine respect and camaraderie that had replaced the initial skepticism she had faced. "Thank you, Chief. It's been an honor working with the team." Several months later, Sarah was attending a planning conference for upcoming operations when she encountered a group of newly assigned officers who were experiencing some of the same challenges she had faced when first joining the special operations community. One young lieutenant was complaining about the difficulty of earning respect from the enlisted personnel and the seemingly impossible standards that were expected of intelligence officers. Sarah listened to his complaints with understanding, remembering her own frustrations during those early weeks at SEAL Team 7. When he finished venting his frustrations, she offered some advice that reflected the hard-won lessons of her own experience. "The thing you have to understand," she said, "is that respect in this community isn't automatic. It's not based on your rank, your education, or your gender. It's earned through demonstrated competence, when the stakes are real and the pressure is overwhelming. The operators you're working with have earned their place through some of the most difficult training in the military, and they expect the same level of commitment and competence from everyone who supports them." She paused, thinking about the night she had coordinated Operation Desert Shield, and the moment when she knew she had truly earned her place among the special operations community. The good news is that once you prove yourself, that respect is permanent. These are people who judge you entirely on your ability to perform when it matters most, and if you can do that, they'll follow you anywhere. Years later, when Sarah had achieved the rank of Admiral and was commanding Naval Special Warfare Command herself, she would often tell the story of Operation Desert Shield to young officers who were struggling with the challenges of earning respect in the special operations community. The mission had become legendary within the community, not just for its tactical success, but for the way it demonstrated that competence and courage could overcome any barrier to professional acceptance. The call sign that some of the operators had mockingly suggested for her during those early days had never materialized, but the respect she had earned through her actions spoke louder than any nickname ever could. When junior officers asked her how she had managed to succeed in such a demanding environment, her answer was always the same. She had proven herself when it mattered most, and that was the only credential that truly counted. The lesson of her experience was simple but profound. In the special operations community, as in many challenging professional environments, Respect could not be demanded or assumed. It had to be earned through demonstrated competence under pressure, and once earned, it opened doors that no amount of political maneuvering or credential accumulation could match. Sarah's journey from skepticism to acceptance had required her to prove herself repeatedly, but it had also provided her with the confidence and professional relationships that would define her entire career. The night she had coordinated the most important mission of her life had taught her that true leadership was not about commanding respect through authority, but about earning it through performance when the stakes could not be higher. And when young officers would ask her about the secret to success in such a demanding field, she would smile and give them the same answer that had guided her throughout her career. Just do your job better than anyone expects, especially when everyone is watching and everything depends on getting it right. The respect will follow naturally.